I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. The sun was setting, casting a dim golden hue over my living room, making the aquarium shimmer like a small aquatic world of its own. I was breeding exotic fish, a hobby I found both calming and deeply fulfilling. The tank was large, a magnificent spectacle that took up most of the wall, filled with vibrant corals and gleaming fish that swam gracefully through their watery haven. As I fed my shimmering golden guppies, I noticed something amiss. A few of them were floating lifelessly at the surface. Puzzled and worried, I approached the tank for a closer inspection. My heart sank as I counted not one, but 3 dead fish. It was unusual for even one of my well-cared-for fish to perish unexpectedly, let alone 3. Kneeling by the aquarium, I began a thorough check. The water parameters were perfect, the filter humming smoothly. But then, my eyes caught a disturbing sight, a thin, almost imperceptible crack running along the bottom corner of the tank. Alarm bells rang in my head. How could this have happened? The sound of the front door creaking open distracted me. "Honey, I'm home," called out Melissa, my wife of 7 years, her voice echoing through the hallway with a cheeriness that now seemed to grate on my nerves. "In here," I replied, my voice tense, as I continued to inspect the damage. Melissa appeared in the doorway, her eyes immediately drawn to my crouched figure. "What's wrong?" she asked, her brows knitting in concern. "The tank is cracked. Did something happen here today that I should know about?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the swirling suspicion in my gut. Melissa hesitated, her eyes flickering away momentarily before meeting mine again. I don't know. Maybe it was just an accident. These things happen, right?" But accidents didn't just happen in our home. Everything was calculated, from the placement of the furniture to the choice of fish species. The crack was too suspicious, and her dismissive tone didn't sit well with me. Later that evening, as Melissa showered, her phone buzzed with a new message. Normally, I respected her privacy, but doubt had already planted its toxic seeds. I picked it up and saw a message from someone named Dave. "Today was wild, can't believe we got away with it, face with tears of joy. My heart pounded as I scrolled through more messages, each one a hammer blow to my trust. They spoke of meetups, of close calls with me, and one particularly damning message about a fun little push against the aquarium when things got intense. Betrayal sliced through me sharper than any broken glass. My own home, our shared life, violated by her infidelity, right here among the relics of my passion for aquatic life. And worse, it had cost my precious fish their lives. As I sat there, surrounded by the ghostly light of the aquarium, a dark resolve settled over me. I would not let this deceit go unavenged. They had broken more than just glass today, they had shattered the sanctity of our marriage. My plan began to take shape, fueled by the twin fires of betrayal and revenge. Melissa and her lover would come to regret their reckless passion. For my golden babies, for my broken heart, I would ensure that their lives would never be the same again. The next morning dawned bleak and gray, mirroring the storm brewing within me. I sat at the kitchen table, my mind racing with plans of retribution, as I waited for Melissa to emerge. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a mundane contrast to the turmoil of my thoughts. Melissa entered the kitchen, her smile faltering when she noticed my solemn expression. "Good morning," she ventured cautiously, pouring herself a cup of coffee. I nodded, my eyes fixed on her. "We need to talk about the aquarium." She tensed, her fingers tightening around the coffee mug. "What about it?" "I know, Melissa. I know about Dave and what you two did," I said, my voice low but firm. The shock on her face was all the confirmation I needed. "How?" "I saw the messages," I cut in, my anger bubbling to the surface. "Not only did you cheat, but you also lied to me last night when I asked directly." Melissa's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. It was a mistake." A mistake that killed part of my world, I retorted, gesturing toward the room where the damaged aquarium stood as a painful reminder. And now, you're going to help me fix it. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. We're going to drain the tank, move the remaining fish, and then you're going to help me replace it. And as we do, we're going to discuss how you're going to fix what you broke in our marriage, I stated, my plan clear in my mind. The day was spent in tense silence, broken only by the occasional clink of glass and slosh of water as we labored over the aquarium. Melissa followed my instructions mechanically, her usual vibrancy dimmed by guilt and regret. As we worked, I outlined my terms. We're going to see a marriage counselor. And you're going to end things with Dave, today. I want to hear the conversation. Melissa nodded, wiping her brow. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do anything to make this right. Late in the afternoon, as the new aquarium began to take shape, Melissa made the call. I listened, a knot in my stomach, as she told Dave it was over, that she had made a grave mistake and needed to focus on her marriage. Dave's angry retorts were muffled by the phone, but her resolve didn't waver. After the call, she turned to me, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. Is there a chance for us? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know, I admitted, my emotions a tangle of hurt and hope. But I'm willing to try. As Melissa nodded, relief mixed with sorrow in her eyes, I realized that my plan for revenge had morphed into something else, a path toward possible reconciliation. Yet, the seeds of doubt remained, nestled deep within me. Would I ever truly be able to trust her again? Only time would tell, but for now, the first steps towards healing were underway, shadowed by the silent vigil of our renewed aquatic world. The fragile peace established by our efforts with the aquarium and Melissa's phone call was short-lived. Over the following days, a cold distance settled between us, a constant reminder of the trust that had been shattered. Despite our mutual commitment to counseling, the atmosphere at home remained tense and uncomfortable. One chilly evening, as I returned from a late meeting, I noticed a car parked across the street that seemed oddly familiar. My pulse quickened as I recognized it as Dave's sleek sedan. Anger flared within me, why was he here after everything? I stormed into the house, finding Melissa in the living room, her face pale as she looked up at me. He won't leave us alone, she whispered, her voice shaking. He came here, demanding to talk. He thinks we can still. Where is he now? I interrupted, my voice hard. He left just before you got home. I told him it was over, but he's not listening. Melissa's eyes were wide with fear. This intrusion was the last straw. My mind raced with outrage and the need for a more definitive form of revenge. He needs to understand it's over, I declared grimly. The next day, I took a personal day from work to deal with the situation. I drove to Dave's apartment, my determination steeling me for the confrontation. I found him in the parking lot, about to enter his car. Dave! I called out, striding toward him. He turned, surprise etching his features as he saw me approach. What do you want? He asked, his tone defensive. We need to settle this, now. You will stop contacting Melissa. You will stay away from our home. This ends today, I stated firmly, my eyes locked on his. Dave scoffed, a smirk twisting his lips. Or what? You think you can scare me? This isn't a threat, it's a promise. I'm not letting you wreck what I'm trying to rebuild. Stay away from my wife, I shot back, my voice icy. Dave stared at me for a long moment, then laughed harshly. You think you've won her back? She'll never forget what we had. You're just a consolation prize. Enraged, I stepped closer, my fists clenched. You're wrong. And if I see you near my house or my wife again, you'll regret it. We stood there, the tension crackling between us, until Dave finally broke eye contact and got into his car without another word. Returning home, I felt a mix of triumph and unease. I had confronted the man who had helped ruin my marriage, but at what cost? Was I becoming someone I didn't recognize in my quest for retribution? That evening, as I recounted the encounter to Melissa, she listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she took my hands in hers, her touch gentle. "Thank you for standing up for us, but I'm worried about what this is doing to you." "To us," she said softly. "I know. I'm struggling with this, too. But I can't let him think he can interfere in our lives without consequences," I replied, the weight of my actions heavy on my shoulders. Melissa nodded, her eyes filled with a complex mix of gratitude and concern. "Let's promise to handle this together, no more solo actions. Whatever happens, we face it as a team." I agreed, feeling a renewed sense of partnership. We were in this tangled web of betrayal and retribution together, and somehow, we had to find our way out. The road to recovery was proving to be more arduous than I had anticipated, each step fraught with the echoes of deceit and the shadows of revenge. Weeks had passed since my confrontation with Dave, and the surface calm belied the storm that was brewing within me. The relentless grip of suspicion and anger had not loosened, instead, it had woven itself deeper into the fabric of my thoughts. Melissa and I continued to drift through our days, the strain of our patched relationship evident in our forced smiles and hollow conversations. Then, late one evening, the facade shattered. I came home earlier than usual to surprise Melissa with dinner, only to find myself the one surprised. The faint murmur of voices led me to the slightly ajar door of our home office. Through the crack, I saw Melissa and Dave, their heads close together, speaking in urgent whispers. The sight ignited a fury within me that burned away any remnants of control. Without a second thought, I kicked the door open, startling them both as they sprung apart. "So this is what you call staying away?" I roared at Dave, my voice echoing with betrayal and rage. Melissa's face was a mask of guilt as she stammered, "It's not what it looks like." "Save it," I snapped. The sight of them together again, after everything, was too much to bear. I turned my wrath towards Dave. "You just couldn't stay away, could you?" Dave, looking defiant yet slightly unnerved, responded, "I came to end it for good." "You don't understand." "What I understand is enough," I interrupted. The room felt oppressively small, the air thick with deception. A plan, dark and vengeful, crystallized in my mind. "You both think you can make a fool of me? Play me for the trusting husband while carrying on behind my back. I'll make sure you regret this." Melissa tried to approach me, tears streaming down her face. "Please, let's just talk." "No more talking," I shouted, cutting her off. My next actions were cold and calculated. I grabbed my phone and snapped several photos of them together, evidence of their ongoing deceit. "This ends tonight." With grim determination, I sent the pictures to everyone who mattered, our friends, family, and Dave's colleagues. "Let them see the truth of these traitors." As the messages sent, the color drained from Dave and Melissa's faces, their realization of the public shame that was about to descend on them palpable. "You'll ruin us," Dave said, his voice a mixture of anger and desperation. "You did that to yourselves," I replied icily. Melissa was sobbing, her body racked with grief. "How could you do this? How could I not?" I retorted, my voice void of any warmth I once felt for her. "This is the price of your betrayal." With nothing left to say, I turned my back on them, my heart hardened to the pleas and apologies that filled the room. I left the house, the sound of their despair trailing behind me. I knew this was the end. There was no coming back from such betrayal. In the following days, the fallout was immense. Dave faced a backlash that cost him his job, his reputation in tatters. Melissa was shunned by those she once called friends. Their lives, as they knew them, were broken, much like the trust they had shattered. As for me, I started over in a new city, far from the ghosts of my past life. The vengeance I sought was achieved, but at the cost of the love I once knew. The lesson of betrayal was learned the hardest way, but it was learned thoroughly. In the solitude of my new beginning, the echo of deceit lingered, a stark reminder that sometimes, the price of retribution is the very soul it seeks to comfort. The final chapter of my marriage was closed, the pages tainted with the ink of betrayal and revenge, never to be revisited.